to thank you all for coming tonight. We're going to have a couple presentations and so forth. One is going to be for City Council, another one for Mayor. We invited the Mayor to be here. Several of us did. And he's decided that he doesn't want to go to one of these until November or January. So, we'll go out without him. Anyway, first off, we have Rich Gill, Kenny Chang, Wally Emery, and I'd like to call up Rich Gill for a 5-minute presentation on what and why he wants to be a councilman. And face me. Anyway, you can speak at the podium, and the microphones are up.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. One of the few times I ever see Mr. Hepburn without his bow tie.
Thank goodness.
But as you stated,
Bring the mic a little closer.
a little closer, you want it louder?
Sure, is it on?
Yeah.
It is on. I mean, I can hear the reverberations of it. But for many of you that don't know, my name is Rich Gill. I came to LaVerne in '76 with my family, went to Bonita High School, actually started in Ramona when they first started bringing the 6th graders in, which was unusual for me at the time. But the one thing that I've noticed since then is that you've seen a lot of changes. And I hope the changes keep getting better as time goes along. In 2015, I actually came back to LaVerne to go to school for the film industry. I wanted to see for myself how the city council was running. And as you can see, I'm usually the camera guy. You, of course, was the camera guy as well. He was there before me. But we always seem to notice changes. When we talk to Rick Bowen, we've noticed changes. And what we want to see, and hopefully, regardless who wins, is that we do see something that happens for the better. Right now, as we all know about Sierra LaVerne, we all watch it as it goes brown, and there's not much we can see or do to witness the possible change. And hopefully, there'll still be enough fight to stop him from doing what he wants to do. And we don't know who that is. I would love to see Mr. Hepburn gain or sit in the seat of mayor. And if I have a chance, I would like to see myself on the council. If you want to know a little bit about me, I've done 22 years in the military. I did go to Saudi Arabia, I did go to Kuwait, and I did go to various places throughout. I have been with the military, and I have done management. One of the things that I did prior was actually run a contest for the military out of nothing. It seems that when the opportunity arises and given the chance, if I'm able to see what's going on and able to look at what is happening and have a chance to make a difference, I'll do it. Last week, or the week prior, when the city council meeting, we noticed that there was a moment when the people were not given a chance to speak when it came to the city manager. That shouldn't have happened. People should have been given a chance to be given their due, to say how they feel. We all know that that contract had more than enough time, and that the new city council, whoever it is, we should have been given the chance to make the changes if need be. We also have a situation with the 5G, and I know that is an issue that many people are interested in. If the city council can make the changes that involve taking these 5G emitters and placing them in areas that doesn't cause any kind of effect for the children, for residents, or for anybody else, I would be in favor of supporting that. Huh?
How about some questions and answers, Rich?
Yes, if there's any questions and answers, please feel free to ask.
That's
Yes.
Is there any circumstances that you would be interested in rezoning Sierra LaVerne?
I don't think that Sierra LaVerne should be rezoned, not for housing. I mean, the people that bought the houses over there, they bought it for a reason. They bought it for the view. Excuse me. For those of you that are now officially deaf, but no, I would not be in favor of rezoning it for any kind of housing purposes. It was a golf course. It should have remained a golf course, and it's a shame that it was lost and given to the person that it was. And the fact that we're going to be fighting for this person until it becomes resolved. Any other questions, please? Yes, ma'am.
Are you for or against contracting with LA County for fire services?
At this point in time, I would like to keep the fire department in LaVerne. I feel it's best that we have the department ready and able to be at to help and support us as needed. I know on a couple of occasions when I've spoken to people that do live in the LA County, they've already mentioned to me that it has taken longer for them to receive support when needed. And that's in the cookie cutter part of LaVerne. It's amazing that we have this one area that's not designated as part of LaVerne. But as part of LA County, they still have to deal with that issue. Is there any other questions? Well, I do thank you all for your time, and I hope you will consider me. I know there will be a lot more that will be available. As we said, Kenny's going to be up, and Wally, and of course, Ken. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
I forgot to say at the beginning of the meeting, we're taking donations for a new PA system, as well as a rental of the hall, because we do rent it from the church and so forth, and you know, they need to make their money as well. So we do have donation things at the back of the church, and we also have sign-up sheets for Sierra LaVerne to get information as needed, as it comes available, and Robin will be able to talk about that later. Right now, we'll bring up Kenny Chang. He's also running for council, and 5 minutes, and then we'll have some Q&A.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Kenny Chang. First, I want to thank the Lucid Group, LaVerne, to organize this and have the opportunity for all of us who are early candidates to have the opportunity to speak up. My name is Kenny Chang. My family and I we moved to LaVerne 2 years ago, because of the community and the welcoming residents that have bring this home to us. And my background is just a little bit so you know who I am. Graduated from Boston University, and started as a banker for 20 years, then owning my business afterwards. And with that, I have seen from Boston that historical preservation and new development can coexist, right? So therefore, what we have right now is a divided community. And the reason I wanted to run for council is because I want to help unite the community that once was when I first moved to LaVerne. And I believe my skills in finance and as a business owner, I can help to bring that community back together. I'm not going to be able to promise you that me alone can achieve that, can make the changes that we're looking for. However, I will pledge you that I will broaden the communication with the citizens. And with your help, then I will work together with the councils, with the mayor, and with the city staff, so that we can make the changes that we're looking for the residents. As one of the council members just recently mentioned, the city is run like a business, right? So if it's run like a business, then the citizens are our customers. Therefore, we want to listen to our customers. We don't just run a business because, oh, this is what I think is good. But we run a business for the customers who listen to what they want, so we can provide what they want for the benefit of the city. And, if any questions you might have, please, I'm welcome any questions. Yes, please.
How important is it for you to expand commercial development?
I have to look at the new plans that I believe the city is currently working on the business development on the south side of LaVerne. Yes, that's important because as probably most of you who attended the city meetings know that the budget, we're in deficit. We just temporarily covered the budget with the reserve funds that we have. Right? But what is that sustainable or not? Then we'll have to see what other revenue can city bring, so that we continue to provide these services that the residents need.
And you specifically mentioned the south side, like Arrow Highway.
Right, with the new Caltran coming in, I believe the city has a new budget to redevelop the area, as well as the new businesses that the city is trying to promote to come in. I believe we have a big success with a farmer from Northern California to bring their second headquarters over here. And we probably will be looking at doing the same thing to bring businesses that will benefit the residents. And, yes.
Kenny, you mentioned you got an extensive financial background, many years of that.
Yes.
Have you used your know-it-all and looked at the city budget and see what it's comprised of? And do you see any changes you could make?
Yes. I don't have the details based on the public disclosure that they have provided. However, based on the budget that I've disclosed on the website, there are costs that I believe that could be reduced. And that will help. Like I said, as a business owner, every small thing helps, right? And we have to really go into detail, one by one. And I would personally, if elected, sit down with the finance director to go over each of the items that, whether it makes sense for the city to have it or not to have it.
Thank you.
Hope that answers the question. Yes, sir.
Good evening. With your position to business and finance, if you can explain what your position would be on the proposed Prop 13 rollback, which disqualifies for the California tax initiative with a ballot in 2020, as it relates to commercial enterprises as well as residential?
Yes. Well, no one likes taxes. I understand that. So especially the business owners or even residents, because if you shop, more taxes you pay, more costs you're spending. You have to look into what are those funds for, right? So, like increase of taxes on the ballot, each of us will have to think, well, this money is going to be earmarked for something else, specific for public safety. I believe, it's not. However, there's a proposal that, LaVerne will have a citizen oversight on a, new tax increase that we are proposing and passed on the last city council meetings. So we'll have to see and how that, as long as the budget, the money is used for the benefit of the residents, I can't argue that is a bad thing. But I don't have the details with me, so hope that answers my question. Yes.
So Kenny, if you're elected in March 2020, you'll come in with a new tax or not, because that would be on the ballot March 2020 also. So if the tax ballot gets approved, which would probably be approximately $4 million for the city, what would you want to see that $4 million spent on?
First, if it's approved, we'll definitely work with the councils and the city staff and the citizens, as proposed, the citizen oversight, to discuss about the matter of spending of that money, right? Depending on what we need the most. Like I said previously, I wanted to go through the detail of the budget first. What are the expenses that could be deleted or increased? And then we can allocate those funds accordingly. Right? Just raising that money and get it approved, then what? We can just spend it whatever we like? No. We wanted to make sure those money are, if it's raised and approved, then we want to make sure those money, like I said, spend for the resident and the benefit of the residents.
So you mentioned about citizens oversight group or whatever. What is your idea with that?
I will propose to the council and with the council's group permission to have the residents to nominate a group. And that group will represent the citizens to also monitor the expenses. Meaning, as I mentioned, I would like to broaden the communication. So I want to make sure that any money, which is your money as well, my money, that is spent to the proper channels.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
What's your stance on small cell towers in school residential parcels, whether it's 40 or not?
Good question. I had a long discussion with a lot of people with that concern issue. I think the first thing through the process and procedure of the city is work first with the development committee and see what are our options. Because depending on what type of contract that we have with the cell towers cell companies, and with those options outside of the contract, if my first proposal would be potential relocation of those cell towers, right? Because it's harmful, but a lot also have residents that complain that they have no signal or no communication, equipment nearby. Therefore, it's something that I believe a lot of people will need and use. But doesn't mean that that will subject to affect the health of our children or even myself. So I will work with the committee and then come up with a proposal, review the contract, contact the vendors, the companies, and we'll work out a more agreeable solution to that.
Thank you very much.
Wait, you, real quick. Sorry.
Pardon me?
Can I ask him real quick?
Sure.
Would you vote to rezone Sierra LaVerne out of A1 agriculture? One question. Second question is, you mentioned that New Urban West contacted you. Can you tell me about what you guys discussed?
Question number one. No, I will against the rezoning of that. Will support the current decision to stay as the open area. Second question, as a resident, I was contacted and they asked me about the potential of development or what are the other options if they were not developed. Right? So my answer to them is, keep as a golf course, if that's an option. There we have seen all the golf courses that are successful, if properly run. It's just a matter of, yes, you guys spend money, so it's up to the owner how they can manage and spend that money properly. So it's profitable. Thank you very much. And if you haven't answered any of the questions, there's a flyer and a card on the back. You speak up. Like I said, I have emails, phone, and text, or Facebook that, you can contact me, and hopefully that I can also answer all the questions and answer.
Thank you, Kenny.
Thank you.
Now we'd like to welcome Wally Emery.
First of all, thank you for this great audience. Got a politician and a microphone in the audience. I think I've done it on the I'm here tonight to ask you for 2 votes. One for me for the city council, and the second one for Tim Hepburn for mayor. Community service has been a way of life for me ever since I first started my Eagle Scout project, and it continued on from there. I went on to become the mayor of South Pasadena, mayor pro tem, city council member, and council liaison to many, many commissions. I understand there's been some conversation about commissions. I went on after my elected offices, and I was a chairperson for 6 years for a planning and zoning commission in Garden City, Idaho. And there was talk about cell phone towers. When we introduced and asked the city council what they thought about an ordinance that would mathematically prevent any new cell towers coming into Garden City, we went ahead and brought that ordinance to the city council. They rezoned the whole city, and to this day, I just checked. There's no more cell towers in Garden City. You want one, you better go to Caldwell and Amp River, Boise. I lived in Garden City, in LaVerne here, and I'm a resident of the Fountains Mobile Home Park. I would bring that information to the city council, along with being the past president of Garden City's election committee. Jumping back to LaVerne, I was the president of Golden City Manufactured Homeowners League, and I was a candidate for a state president. Right now, I'm helping you all with the Sierra LaVerne project by reaching out to people that I know in government, the city of Los Angeles, LA County, and the newly elected president of the Independent Cities Association. And all those contacts are starting to bear some fruit, but not a lot. We need to get hands on the California code that I led with your chairperson. And we need to learn that, study that, and know that code inside and out, so that when it gets to negotiating time, we'll be ready to do that. But having said that, I'm ready. I have the experience. I've got over 30 years of municipal, volunteer, and elected service, and I can bring all those contacts and that experience to LaVerne City Council. And I'm ready, willing, and able to take on that responsibility. If you do vote for me, that seat up in the dais is not going to be my seat. That seat's going to belong to all of you. I believe in open and transparent government. And there's been some things that I've noticed that I'm not proud of, that City of LaVerne has done. And thanks to Mr. Hepburn, a lot of that has come out into light. Open, honest, transparent governance. If you do elect me, in the past I've had office hours, and I would go to the library and sit for an hour, 2 hours, or however long it took, once a month for the public to come in and visit with their elected public officials. That chair is not going to be mine. I'm just going to be the caretaker of that chair until somebody comes in behind me and takes it over. The city council is your council. It doesn't belong to the city manager or city hall or anybody else. It's your think right now, I'm disappointed and a little bit ashamed and embarrassed about the way the city has treated our fire department. I was 1/5 of a group that balanced 5 city budgets, and we did it with no problems with either the firefighters or the policemen or the street workers or the office staff. That money should go to balancing our budget. I would also like to protect our individual employees. We have to take a hard, serious look at CalPERS. I understand that we're backwards or in arrears for some of our dues, and we need to be current on that. Yes, ma'am.
With your experience in Pasadena, planning and with the council and the staff, and you now are involved at meetings here and the council meetings, and we speak of Sierra LaVerne, could you see things specifically that the staff, the city right now could be doing and engaging to save a piece of property, whether it's with the state, other coalition groups that would help maintain it as open space? Are there things that the city could be doing, the staff, do you think, rather than just sitting and, it seems like we're getting this feel that communities are a little sit back and wait, but the citizens are the ones doing the marching out and the work.
I think the rubber meets the road right here in this room, and with all y'all. It's just amazing that you've got this group together. I've burned up my telephone since Tim Hepburn gave me the task of leaning on all my political and elected and appointed people. I've considered 2 people, the National Rifle Association, because I understand we have some geese or ducks or whatever up there. And I've also considered getting in touch with the National Rifle Association. I'm grasping at straws. If anybody's got any other ideas, I would be more than willing to find out those people and make those phone calls and try to get some contacts. I've got 2 that I would be sharing with you via email. But just reach out to all the tentacles, reaching out to everybody you know or somebody you just barely met. But I think you've come a long, long way, and I'm just very proud. I'm all in to this project for sure.
When you say that, I just want to be clear, would you ever vote to rezone Sierra LaVerne from A1 agricultural open space to anything?
I wouldn't change the zoning as it is now. I'm all in with this project, and I'm behind you guys at 110% or whatever number you want to call it. Yes, sir.
I have another question for zoning issues. I know we gave some zoning issues for Sierra LaVerne, but what are your thoughts on also see this but as far as rezoning that, since they do have to send their notice?
I don't have enough information to make an informed answer on that, but if you get with me after the meeting, I guarantee you I'll research it and get you a proper answer.
Thank you, Wally. Wally Emery. Now I'd like to welcome up Mayor Tim Hepburn.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Hugh and Fred and Pam for putting this together, and the LBC3 group. As you all know, my biggest thing in this community is all of your input, your voices, all of your needs, and see if we can fit it into the city to make sure we can afford those needs, but to make sure that we're heard. And it gets us in trouble sometimes, but you know what? I'm willing to take that heat. So those people that don't know who I am, my name is Tim Hepburn. My wife Patty and I have lived in LaVerne for probably 36 years. We've raised all three of our children here. They've all gone through the system. My daughter did go to University of LaVerne. My other two went elsewhere. But my engagement in starting with the city was youth sports, soccer, volleyball, water polo, and that's where I met a core of our friends, and we've been friends for forever since the city. And during the high school years, my kids were in high school. We went from grade school. I coached, mentored. We went to high school. I was on the boosters with my wife and I. We ran the snack bar for 12 years. We basically were involved with everything in the community. Then I joined the Planning Commission. I was on the Hillcrest Board of Directors for 5 years, the Planning Commission for 3 or 4. The opportunity in 2015 came up to run for council, so I ran for council and won. Then we basically came along, and I decided that it was probably time for me to run for mayor, which was something that not many people do in LaVerne, because we have an ingrained political system that not many people can breach or enter. And I wasn't happy with what was going on, and I figured it was time. And for that, I lost by 7 votes, as you all know, and then all of a sudden we had the issue with the firefighters' lawsuit, which was, as far as I'm concerned, was not going to happen at all. I voiced my opinion and got in trouble for that. Was blamed for many things that were unsubstantiated. They're not true, and they still aren't true. My character was assassinated many times, but as a politician and as a LaVernite, and I know what's right in my heart, and everything I've ever done is for the residents. Any decisions I've ever made is for the residents. Engagement, making sure you know what's going on. Transparency is the most important thing in local government. And we're getting there. It's taking time. It's a hard ship to turn when it's going this direction, and you have to turn it to the right to bring it back to where our residents have a say on what we spend. Our residents have a say in what we do. Contracts, as you've seen lately, I've been a business owner since 91. I've been in the electrical construction business since 77. And anything that I do is a competitive bid process. It's just that's how I function. You win some, you lose some. But for our residents, we are stewards of the finances of this community, and it's so important for us to have a seat at the table, to know what we're spending, and to have a choice, and to look at that choice. That hasn't happened. Like I say, I'm 1 of 5. It's very difficult. And the last one we had was a city manager. Whether good, bad, or indifferent, why should I make the decision for someone, whether I'm mayor or not? Why should I make the decision and not give that to someone else that gets in that position to see if they like that individual? And not only that, to make sure that it works for them, and also to make sure that they don't lock in an 18-month severance package when he still has 2 years left on his contract. It's just good business. It's just good business. But the most important thing is you residents. I listen, we act, we discuss how to make things happen, we put lists together, we form groups, and that's how Marshall Canyon was stopped. That's how White Avenue striping wasn't expanded. These things are very important, and it's very busy. You get a lot of flack for it, but the point is that this is your city, not mine. I am just very privileged to be doing this. It's not a right, it's a privilege to be on the council. And I look forward to running for mayor. It's going to be a very contested and hot race, but I'm up for it, and I appreciate all of you here tonight. And if you have any questions, fire away. Yes?
Are you for or against contracting with other county for fire services?
My opinion on that is the fact that is the residents' opinion. If the residents may make that decision. On my campaign in 2017, I stated, and I still state, as long as we can support our fire department with the right equipment, the safety tools, and the safe working environment, we keep our fire department. Same as our police department. As long as we can keep them outfitted with the proper gear, tools, equipment, and safe working environment, we need to keep our own fire and our own police departments. If that changes, as residents, we need to make that decision on what we want to do, what's best for our residents, not me, our residents. Yes?
What do you think is the most important issue that you face as a council member right now? Like, what do you think is, like, everybody has their little pet issues that they want to promote. What do you think is the most important thing to work on right now?
I just think honest governance over our finances and how we make the decisions, and don't shut our residents out. There should always have a seat at the table, always. And I think that's the biggest thing is when you do things like we just did and almost don't give people a chance to talk and voice their opinion. You and I pay for the city services. Always, we should always have a seat at the table, always.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot something. I'm just frustrated as all get out. The agenda for the council meetings is posted on a Thursday. City Hall's closed on Friday. And then there's Saturday and Sunday and a meeting on Monday. That just frustrates the heck out of me. What's your opinion?
Well, actually, I'm the one that had it changed. They gave it to us on Tuesday. I said, especially when you have an agenda that's got thousands of pages, it takes time to look over that stuff. And especially the financial part of it, the audited demands. I think I'm probably one of the few council members that actually looks over every single bill every month. Millions of dollars of expenditures, just to see what's there. You know, what are we doing there? I've tried to push it back. I know the city they have to put their agendas together, and I understand it's quite lengthy. But I think sometimes we jam an awful lot of stuff in there to scoop things in without some oversight and some discussion, and I find that very alarming to me. But I'm actually the one that pushed it to where we get it sometimes on Monday or Tuesday, and we try to get it out earlier and then post it. And that was my request because there's just not enough time. And you know, it almost feels like they would put it out so no one really wanted to look at it, so no one had time to look at it, and you just basically go ahead and shove it through, and then you come Monday and you just pass the whole agenda. Well, I'm sorry. That's not the way it works anymore. We need to know what's going on. We need to know every issue in the city. So, I mean, some of them I knew, but there's some big stuff that's been happening lately, and we need to know what's going on and where it's spent and where it's going.
Thank you.
Yes, Ron?
Would you vote to rezone Sierra LaVerne?
Absolutely
under any
not.
circumstances?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
So is there any question of rezoning as far as Las Casitas? Which decision of Las Casitas? I'm really concerned about senior citizens here in the garden. This idea that you can rezone Las Casitas really doesn't make sense.
Absolutely not. It should not be rezoned. It should stay as it was zoned for. I will not support that. As a matter of fact, the council, we put together a package to protect the residents of our mobile home community, which there's quite a few residents that are on fixed incomes and military background that we need to definitely protect. So absolutely not. I find it egregious, but I understand on the business aspect side of it, but you just can't take the blanket out from under people that live there. They've got coaches that, not coaches, excuse me, Wally. They've got mobile homes that some of them cannot move because of their age, and so they're stuck. And so it makes it very difficult. And so I do not support rezoning it. I think that the family trust that's doing that should reconsider, and the things that we put in place put some major teeth into the ordinance that makes it very, very difficult for a landowner to change to try to sell or whatever, go through the process. But I can tell you on my part, no, they stay exactly as they are. Yes?
What's your stance on wireless communication in residential areas and parks, and would you be interested in adopting an ordinance that keeps those from homes?
Susie, everything I read on it so far is not good. And I'm kind of scared about it, but I want to really research it. I think that we need to be very careful what we do in close proximity to children and seniors. And I think right now is what I'm reading, and we need to read a lot more. But there are communities that outlaw it completely. I'm not sold on it. personally. And so right now, I would say I would not support it until we know exactly what it's doing. I mean, you've got the cigarette industry that said that smoking was no problem, wasn't bad for anybody. And now you've got vaping issues right now that are just absolutely off the charts and people are dying. It's like, okay, it's safe? No, it's not. Smoking was never safe. You know, so it's a big issue. I'm very concerned about it. I appreciate what you've been doing in championing it. You need to bring it more and more information because everything I read, National Health Organizations, it's not good. It's pretty scary. So, yes, sir.
I heard your answer, okay, but could you just state what the question was? I mean, I got the gist of what.
Oh, I'm sorry. The question was, what is your stance on 5G, the new wireless, the new high speed with local antennas in our neighborhoods on light poles? And my statement was that right now, reading and doing research, it is not safe, and it is a very touchy, kind of a dangerous situation. We really need to research before we put anything on anywhere in our city to protect our residents. Yes, sir.
Tim, I've heard occasionally about resident oversight committees. I personally think those are good. Oversight committees, people being on them, and should you be mayor, what would someone who sits on a committee look like? What qualifications would they have to have?
Residents, all residents. I was the one that put this one together for the Active Transportation Committee and required that we would have residents and start that committee. We just formed it with residents pool, a couple council members. The same thing with this tax measure that we're looking at in 2020. I did not support it at first because I don't believe that you should have a tax unless you have an oversight committee of the residents, of staff and council to make sure that those monies that come in are spent properly, whether it be employees or our first responders. It needs to have an oversight, and all of you, not just anyone in the community. And we used to have committees a long time ago, and they basically disbanded them. I know that Claremont's got quite a few, South Pasadena's got quite a few. It's important. A seat at the table. It's very important for everyone's input, whether it be the financial stability, whether it be active transportation, whether it be rivers and mountains conservancy type situation, whether it be roads. There's a place for that. So, and I did state, and the language is in the tax measure, that there will be an oversight committee comprised of residents and the council. So, very important. Yes.
With the tax coming, sales tax coming, is there any threat of loss of any resource in the city, being street workers to police, to fire, to anything? If the tax doesn't pass, will there be a loss of anything that you're aware of?
No.
Will there be a gain? Will they be adding more police officers? Will we get our street super back that we contracted out to county if we get the money where it's going to?
We already have, right now, the city has already said we're going to have 3 more officers. We are selling the Amherst property, which is 5.5 acres for $5.5 million. That will go into the fund. But we do need more officers. We do need more firefighters. We're hiring out to county now for dispatch, for the dispatch portion for fire, but we're keeping the dispatch for police. We have closed our jail services, and our jail services are now covered by Pomona. And so, in answer to your question, no. If that tax measure doesn't pass, I would hope that we could fund and continue to fund, especially with the goal line coming and things that are going to affect our services. We're going to have to make sure that we have those services no matter what we do. So hopefully you don't. Answer your question. Any other questions?
Yeah, Tim, just a quick question. Do you see any issues popping up with the MS4 compliance as it relates to the IFD based on the council of government's position and how those would actually maybe stop the funding from dropping in the banks once the two compliance issues come together?
I don't think so, Tom. That's in flux right now. It keeps changing. It's changing dynamically. So there was an MS4 compliance. This is the partner cities had a lawsuit. They won the lawsuit against the county because there were such great restrictions on stormwater, how you capture stormwater, how you filter stormwater. They were going to make each area that whatever water went into the waterways, they were responsible for that discharge. That's changing now, but it's still a changing dynamic. So I don't think it'll affect our EIFD. Most of the buildings, and they're doing now, are compliant with, they build a storm catch, but they also do a, where it goes back into the earth, and then it overflows into the sewer. So there's a lot of things going on with that, but it's changed dynamically over the last 2 years. Better for us, it wasn't real good for us at first. Any other questions?
Tim, we just have a question. Where's the Amherst property?
The Amherst property is where we have a well, where we have a pumping station there. It's off of, off of Amherst, over on the east side of the community. Yeah, Williams, Bowden, it's right, it's been there for years, but we have the pumping facility on it, and when I got on council, I said, well, we were doing our feasibility study, and I said, why do we have a piece of property that we don't use? And it'll 25 to 30 homes, so that's what. Anybody else? Yes.
I have a question. My name is Lee. I know I really gonna support you because I so appreciate last time you get us really support for the Widening Avenue. And recently, one thing I really want your opinion because I went 3 times the school district meeting and even went to a city council meeting to ask about the sex education in the public school. And then the city council, Robin, she said, yeah, it's not, city council couldn't really do anything because it's school board's things. But she did call and arrange an appointment for me to meet the assistant superintendent. That's why we have a very big turnout last September 11, a very big information meeting for parents, about like 200 parents. That's really, really great support. So I want the opinion in the future because it's going to be long term because the sex education in California right now is really a lot of argument. I know we protest do a lot of things for that. But for the city, I know that LaVerne is kind of like a conservative city, a lot of Republican. But I didn't ask about who I will vote, Republican or Democrat. We don't want that argue. But I really want the opinion from the future candidate. What kind of position you will stand about this case? Because I don't say, hey, this is the law, we have to follow. But so many people against that, and even protests yesterday, some state like Minnesota, yesterday a very big protest. And last week in California, a lot of protests too. We went to Pasadena to the protest in legislation, the office, in front of the office. So I really want to know, could you like, as a candidate, will you like do something to stand with the parents? Yeah, thank you.
That's a loaded question. Well, my kids are older now, but as I've told anyone that had an issue of some sort with their environment, their residents or their streets, to form a committee of your own, form a committee with people that have your similar interests, because my kids are older now, and so they're gone, but the point is that you need to champion that and then go to the district. We don't set policy, that's state and federal guidelines as far as sex education and stuff. It's kind of out of the city realm, but we're always concerned about our residents' issues, but I think you're doing the right thing. You're going to the district, you're talking to the superintendent, and make them aware. And the thing is if enough people go and enough people have an issue, they'll address the issue. You'll have conversation. And if it's a big enough issue and there's enough people, they'll make a change. But again, sometimes it has to go to the state level because those are mandated by states. Thank you. Thank you all.
I also want to say that Matt Lyons is back there, and he'll be here next month as well, because we'll be doing something on the superintendent coming here, talking about the sex education that's going on. There's a lot of information out there, a lot of disinformation out there, and we're going to try to clean it up. In any event, thank you very much. Now, we move on to the next part, which is our firefighters. I think Fred wanted to introduce Andy. Okay.
Hi, good evening. My name is Fred Claude. How about the LB3C here? I've known Andy for about a little over 2 years. May 24th, 2017, he came to my house for the first time. And that's because I had cardiac arrest. And I wouldn't be here today if he wasn't there. And he wasn't the only responder. So luckily, he was there and the other responders were there and brought me back to life. As Andy likes to say, I was dead when he got there, which is true.
Yes.
Okay. Anyways, the reason why I thought it would be nice to introduce Andy here now, since then you've become the president of LV Cafe, right? Yeah. Okay. And he's also been promoted to a captain. And this is a little bit of a beef that I have with the city, and I brought this up about 2 months ago, and I asked our Mayor Kendrick when he was going to do the badge pinnings on the firemen that have been promoted within the department over the last several months. And there's been how many promotions? Captains?
A couple, yeah, I don't know how many.
At least three,
Right.
3 or 4, right? Okay. And I asked Mayor Kendrick when he was going to do the badge pinning, because that was just kept getting overlooked. And this was after the lawsuit was settled. And as of last Monday, there's still no badge pinning, even though there's been multiple badge pinnings for the police department going on, which I find is not what most citizens would want. I don't think I'm talking, for myself only here. And I found it real curious last Monday, a week ago Monday, at the city council meeting. It was Patriots Week as listed on the city agenda. And even though it was listed as Patriots Week, we still did not have badge pinning for the fire department promotions, which there's only one person in my mind should answer to that, and that is our Mayor Kendrick. So the lawsuit is over, and I think that the city needs to move on and start acknowledging these people and get on with life and do what is the right thing. I don't think these men, there's no women, right? So I didn't say that wrong. They need to be acknowledged. I mean, a simple badge pinning and your own mayor doesn't acknowledge that, it's wrong. It's definitely wrong. Okay, so I'll stop rambling about all this. Andy, thank you.
Of course. Badge pinning's above my pay grade, but I don't have anything to do with that. And, just to clarify, like Fred said, I was just one of many that helped Fred when he was in his cardiac arrest. So thank me, but thank the rest of the firefighters that were there too, because they did a great job as well. As Fred said, my name is Andy Glaze. I'm the LaVerne Firefighter Association president. Fred and Rick asked me to talk today sort of to give you guys an update on what's gone on since the lawsuit, because essentially the lawsuit ended and we dropped off the face of the earth. So it seems. So I didn't really prepare a speech. I didn't know what this was all about. I haven't been to one of your meetings. I feel bad. Literally every time you guys have a meeting, I'm working. So I'm actually working tonight, but Kevin Wilton is covering me, so thank you, Kevin. So I could be here tonight. But so basically the lawsuit ended, and for you guys that don't know, I assume most of you know, but we had a pretty contentious lawsuit for about 2 years with the city, and it ended with a settlement. We ended up settling and not going to a jury trial on the first day that we went to court. And a lot of people were like sort of concerned. They wanted us to go to trial and do everything, and they didn't really understand why we did this settlement. And so I kind of wanted to start by explaining that and explaining our thought process. We had a lot of issues that we tried to address in the lawsuit that dealt with retaliation and the way we were treated. And we felt that by going through a jury trial, they wouldn't be addressed. If you go to a jury trial, the only thing a jury can do is award you money. And we didn't feel like that was what our goal was, is just to get a bunch of money, if we won. It also, a jury trial would lead more years onto the lawsuit because we would go through the jury trial, whoever won would win, and then the other side would appeal. That would be another long process, probably another 18 months. Then there'd be another judgment, and then the other side would appeal, and it would go on for another 6 months. And it just seemed like after going through 2 years of already a lawsuit, that was a lot to put us through, the city through, our families through. And so we went down the settlement route. With the settlement route, we were able to have the city and us agree on certain non-monetary items that we felt were really important. First, they removed all discipline that was given to us during the lawsuit. For those of you that don't know or have read the lawsuit, you can see that there was a lot of discipline, a lot of investigations handed down on the firefighters during the lawsuit as a form of retaliation. All that was wiped clean. To the point where the court deemed it, let's see, I wrote it down here. Or maybe I didn't. Well, it's some legal term, but basically deemed it completely gone. And that was important to us because when you have discipline in your record, it's hard to promote, and it's also hard to leave and go to another department if that's what you want. So we felt that as part of the settlement, that needed to be a priority to get rid of all that discipline and investigations that had gone on. The city also agreed to change their promotional process because during our lawsuit we contended that the promotional process was a way that they retaliated against us by delaying things and promoting certain people or doing things that was biased, basically. So they canceled lists early, and the fire chief graded certain like exams when everyone's name was on it, so he could see who he was grading, so he could give certain people higher scores and certain people lower scores. And so, as part of the settlement, they reversed that and made it so that it was an unbiased, fair process as far as promotions go. They also agreed to maintain active promotional lists. So there's always a list for fire captain, battalion chief, engineer, and they're always going on. So if that spot needs to be filled, it can get filled. It seems logical, but it was another thing that they were doing in order to retaliate against us, is keeping those lists dead so that there was no ability to promote. And lastly, which was a huge bone of contention, and if you listen to any of my speeches in front of City Council, you know how we felt about our lack of involvement in the wildland firefighting efforts throughout the year. We live in California, and there's a lot of wildfires. As firefighters, we want to go help those communities and help put them out, help save homes, help save people. Just like when we had the rodeo fire in LaVerne, firefighters from all over the place came and helped us. We want to help out when there's fires, and we felt that we were being stopped from doing that. And so as part of the settlement agreement, we now have a wildland standard operating procedure that allows us to go out a lot more. And we'll make it so that we can participate more often. And we already have gone out more this year, although this year has been a pretty relaxed fire season, hasn't really started yet. So in the future, that'll help us out at all. So those three things were really important to us, and we felt that those three things were more important than money. Now, obviously, we were rewarded money as well, and so because we did have damages, we had significant damages. Individuals did in the lawsuit. So the money came too, but for us, the non-monetary items were way more important, and we wouldn't have got those if we had gone to a jury trial. So at the same time, when we were settling and going through the end of the lawsuit, the city hired Chief Summers, who, if you guys came to the last meeting or maybe 2 meetings ago, Chief Summers was here, and he's kind of ushered in like a little bit better morale. He's helped us through like a really tough time because we were going from this very like hostile end of the lawsuit thing, and now he's helping us fix some of the problems that were not addressed in the last couple of years. So that's been really good too, and that sort of helped us not like kind of why we disappeared at the end of the lawsuit, because some of his advice was basically, hey, don't spike the football. That was important. He felt that there was no reason to go up there and rub it in anybody's face that we had gotten this settlement or that we had gotten what we got. But instead, he wanted us to build bridges with the city and sort of start over. And so he brought in an executive consultant. His name's Mike Messina. And Mike, Chief Summers, and myself have spent a lot of time brainstorming ways to fix the department, and then also having lots of meetings with both the city manager and city council as a way to sort of start the healing process, but also rebuilding bridges. Because probably one of the biggest problems with the start of the lawsuit and throughout the lawsuit was just communication issues. So he's really helped us start that process in communication and move us forward. And it's worked out well. So it's a hard process. Obviously, there's still a lot of raw feelings, both on our side and the city side, probably the citizen side too. It was a really rough 2 years, but we're trying very slowly to move forward. So that's sort of the summary of the end of the lawsuit till now. But I figured that you guys would have lots of questions, or maybe not. But if you do, I'm here to try to answer them the best I can while, not trying to ruffle too many feathers.
So the non-monetary issues, which were the main point for all of you, and why the community was supporting the fire department, could the city manager at the end of the lawsuit, we would go to meetings and ask, and we were basically told it's sealed in the court records, or we can't discuss it as far as I can remember. Could they have told the residents about, you're able to talk to us about it now, could they have told us those things that were resolved besides the non-monetary?
It's actually in the settlement agreement, which I believe is public record. I think they actually posted it on their Know the Facts. But if you read it, it actually details it in way more detail. There's timelines and all sorts of things, but it details all sorts of information. We have to actually get back to the court and prove that, like with the wildland, we had to rewrite our standard operating procedure. We had to agree on it with the city. The city signed off on it, then we told our attorneys. The attorneys then told the court, yes, they're good with that one, and so on and so forth.
So we would have to go to the site and read it, where when we would stand there and ask the question, we wouldn't really get an answer.
Yeah, I can't.
I just wanted to make sure it was.
Yeah, no, it's
they could
definitely
have told us
honest.
if they wanted to at the time. Yeah.
I don't know what they can and can't do, but
Okay.
I do know that it's definitely in the settlement agreement in detail and everything like that.
Thank you.
So, yes.
Why did you sign the original vote of no confidence?
Ooh. One of the things I didn't want to do right now is I don't want to really dive into the past. I I'm not gonna get into a bunch of detail about the lawsuit or the vote of no confidence or any of that sort of stuff. We're really trying to move forward. We're really trying not to focus on the negative stuff. I don't think it's productive. I spent a very, very long time talking about it in city chambers and Facebook posts, all sorts of stuff. So if you wanted to know why I signed the vote of no confidence, you could read the vote of no confidence, because I think it outlines it. Yes?
What does the settlement do going forward to prevent the same thing from happening again? And obviously, this costs us taxpayers money, I believe, right? So, in hindsight, and maybe nobody had the power to do this, but if a company is faltering, the CEO generally gets fired. So, I don't know if anybody got fired over this, but rather than cost the city and the taxpayers all this money, ultimately it was the senior guy at the fire department, who I assume is the chief. It was his responsibility, and it was under his command that this situation developed. Could you have seen a different way around a lawsuit, or was this just impossible?
Well, I mean, like I said, we had some pretty serious communication problems on all levels with the city and with the chief, which led to all this. It could have probably gone differently if there was better communication. What we can do, the settlement does outline ways that the same mistakes aren't going to be made again, because it's outlined in the lawsuit that they have to do certain things. But I think hiring Mike Messina is a big thing, because he's working with city council, he's working with the fire department, he's working with the chief, he's working with the city manager, and he's making it so that we communicate. I think as long as we continue to communicate, that things like this won't occur, because when you have communication breakdown, that's when people get angry and mistakes are made. So I'm hoping that it won't happen again, because we're gonna work on our communication skills on all levels, our side and their side, and but I guess there's no guarantee. Yes.
I apologize for not being more knowledgeable and up to date about this issue, but are there still members of the department on paid administrative leave?
No, here's the thing. The last member on paid administrative there was a battalion chief that was on paid administrative leave, and he retired. And I don't currently know the exact status of Chief Jankowski. We have an interim chief right now, Chief Summers, and Jankowski is not like coming to work every day, but I can't tell you what's going on with him, because I don't know.
Andy, what about, you brought up Chief Summers. Chief Summers is on the 940?
Yeah, it's I can't remember what the number's called, but he's basically just here for 6 months.
Okay.
And he's going to be leaving in like early November.
So that's
soon.
6
Yeah.
weeks away. So what do you hear?
I mean, there's different options. Like, we don't know what's going on with Jankowski, but as long as he's on the books as our fire chief, then we would have to get another interim chief until we figure out what's going on with that. If Jankowski were to retire or do something like that, then we could hire another fire chief. But we're kind of, sort of up in limbo until then. I know that they're working on looking at other fire chiefs, other interim chiefs, all that sort of stuff. They're being active about it, but I don't know that.
We're only 6 weeks away. 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And you haven't heard about any
Well,
chief coming in?
I've heard that they have people
They are interviewing?
Yeah, that they've looked at, but I haven't met anybody.
So can you ask this question to Messina?
Oh, I've asked him, believe me. I mean, because everybody's worried about it, of course. I mean, that's worrisome when you have a chief we have this great relationship with, and he's about to leave, and the unknown is always very scary. So, but I just don't have a definitive answer yet. I know they're working on it, but I don't have it.
Basically, you've been told that the interview process is going on right now?
I think it's an informal interview process, but I haven't heard like if HR is actively involved or not.
So, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so stop me if I do. I mean, it seems to me that the chief fire department is a pretty important position for any city.
Sure.
So we're only 6 to 8 weeks away, and you don't know.
It might be above my pay grade. I mean, just being honest, like, you know, it might be going on, and I just don't know. You know, HR might be.
It should tell me.
Well, like I said, they told me that there's definitely people that there's a list, but I don't know how far the process is as far as getting a new person in.
Does that new chief have to be approved through the city council? You know?
I would assume.
Instead of hire from.
I would assume you'd have to be approved, yes. I believe Summers was approved.
So.
You know?
We have control over the police chief.
But not the fire chief?
Not the fire chief. It was because Chief Summers coming in, that was just an expenditure.
Oh, okay. So then it'd be up to Bob Russell.
Oh.
But here's the thing is, Summers and Rusty have a very good relationship, and we've been working, and I have a feeling that I will work with him, and he will work with Rusty, and we'll get somebody in there good. I'm confident. Yes?
If I can ask a question, would you characterize the damages as more compensatory or punitive? What I mean by that is, were they made up for unpaid compensation, or sort of we're going to make it an example, or just stick it to you?
Well, because it wasn't like a jury trial where a jury would assign like damages that way, it was really just a lump sum. So, you know, there were compensatory damages done based on what we felt like in the lawsuit, based on damages. A lot of it was, you know, emotional stress and stuff like that, which is hard to put a value on. And probably some of it was punitive, just based on, you know, don't do it again. But because it's just a lump sum, it's just a lump sum. There was no definition of what it was when it was given to us. Yes?
With regards to the settlement of the lawsuit, I'm sure we're all happy to see that operational disparities are taken care of and everything seems to be in working order. But I just hope this doesn't affect our Christmas holiday traditions any. My one question that I have with regards to the settlement is, who got paid?
What do you mean by like?
Who actually received the money from the settlement?
Everyone in the association received it.
The association?
Yeah. Or I should say everyone that, you know, signed the vote of no confidence and signed the settlement agreement. We had some retired guys too that were involved. Yes?
I just have a quick question. I know you said you don't know what's happening with Jankowski. Is there any possibility that they would put him back in charge of you guys? And how would that work?
I don't know. I would hope not, but I can't say for certain on any of the, on that, you know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next part, you had something? Okay. Next part, we just wanted to talk about what's going on in the group. First off, how about Pam Berry with the homeless response? And then we'll see if we have anything from Susie Morales on 5G, Robin Walker on Sierra LaVerne, and Rich Eddy. Haven't seen you tonight, Rich. You here?
Turn to your left.
Oh, Jesus. Sorry. Didn't mean that. Anyway, and then we'll talk about the website. Oh, Cynthia.
Hello, everybody. Okay, just a couple things. Homelessness is something that we've kind of seen more and more of. Okay, I'm getting close. So I looked on the City of LaVerne website, and there is a document in there, plan to prevent and reduce homelessness. This was put together in June of 2018. It has a lot of information in it. Basically what I got from it was, just statistics and some processes, and they talked about the overall large service area plan, which is LaVerne and many, many other cities, which goes all the way out to like San Fernando, down to the South Bay. But they said that there is an increase, and we already know that. We haven't used to see anything in LaVerne, and we do now. But what do we do about it? We had the police chief come earlier this year and talk to us about that. And basically, I just want to remind everybody just some of the things that they suggested. We want to direct people to resources, and we do have resources through the Tri-City Mental Health. So what the police officers have said, if you see people that are panhandling in front of a store, if you see someone who's hanging out in a park that, maybe kind of living there, they want to know. They want you to call so that they can contact the people. They want to build a rapport with them. They're not going to go there and harass them. But they need some help. And they are trained in how to get to people and coordinate that so that they can encourage them to take advantage of the help. They want to direct them to the resources. There were a lot of comments in the summary of this report, just in talking to different people in the city and what the perception was that there's not resources. So we need to know there are resources. And giving somebody, some money or just walking by isn't doing anybody any good. So we need to get the police there to help get them to the resources. What the police chief said was that donating money to those resources is probably the best thing that you can do. Give them the support so that they have more to offer to these people. And another thing that's kind of came up today, just listening to some of the news recently, is we are going into fire season, and we have had several fires in the greater Los Angeles area that have been in encampments. As it gets colder at night, as people are trying to stay warm or cook their food or whatever, things get out of control. So we don't want any of those encampments to settle down in our dry area from the golf course. So we do need to get people into the resources that are available. So I guess bottom line for me of what I have as a takeaway is just take advantage of what we do know, that there are people within the police department that their focus is working with the homeless and helping to guide them to the resources. We've got the shelters that are at Pomona, where they can go. And we're just going to deal with it. It was kind of the gold line. We'll make it a little bit more of that.
Yes.
But anyway, just spread the word around it. The best way to handle it is to get the police to help get them to the services.
If you do want more information, there's a video posted on the site. The mayor or the police chief, Nick Paz, as well as Sergeant Corey Lieber, describes what the police department wants you to do on this, and they want to help. They don't want to hurt. Also, we do have some forms in the back for voter registration forms, and we have some recall forms as well if you're predisposed, and we want you to get those. I'd like to call up Robin Walker now for Sierra LaVerne updates.
Hi, I'm Robin Walker. I guess I'll start off with saying I feel like we've had a little bit of success in the sense that they're not going to be draining the ponds. I didn't get a thorough reason, but I think I got a little bit that I think vector control and fishing game or fish and wildlife, whatever the name of that. I think a lot of residents called and made a fuss and they got involved, and I think that the ownership realized that it was going to be a much bigger deal to do something like that than they thought, or maybe in the past. So it works for now. They, I know, added some mosquito fish, something like that into the ponds. So they're dealing with things that way. So I find that success, and I think it has a lot to do with people calling and getting the right people involved and stuff. Also, we know that the fire marshal went through and red taped and green taped the different trees that needed to be either trimmed or removed. So I know there was oak trees and things, but they were dead and diseased. And you're allowed to remove an oak tree if it's dead or diseased. So I find those, the fact that they are taking care of at least the dead stuff, and that they did comply with certain things. I still think there are some palm tree nuisance issues, and, we're gonna call on that because some of those palm trees, are going down to the reeds or whatever they're called, palms are going all the way down to the bottom, and I still think that some of them are pretty close to home, so I think we're personally gonna call this one of them, it's pretty close to mine. But I still think those are some successes. I don't know why they're, and there isn't a fence permit being pulled yet. So do I think that that's coming? Yeah, I still do. I don't know why there's a pause. I know that we all heard Eric sure talk a little bit about that, and that there is no ordinance against a chain link fence, but having looked at some of the ordinances here, I do think there's ordinances on specific building materials that would apply. And I think I found a few things, if anybody wants to look it up, under municipal codes, they can look up 18.16.100, and it kind of goes over some of the materials and design and architecture that needs to be observed with community standards and the character of the adjacent development. Now, I don't know about you, but we know that chain link fence isn't in character of the adjacent development. So I just think there's going to be an opportunity in the near future for us to rally, come together, and make a fuss if and when he decides to put an application in, or for a fence or something like that. I think that that's in the near future. Hence why we talked about doing the cards. It'd be nice to get an email list or even a cell phone blast or something on a day that we need everybody to show up in support. And that's really all it is, because there'll be a day where there's gonna be a planning commission meeting or a city council meeting that we all need to show up to, and it's just a way, we're all super busy to go, hey, please come today and support us and give a statement. And so they know how you all feel about a chain link fence or rezoning or whatever it is the next thing is. And so that's all that card is for, really. It's just, and I think they also, LV3C wants to have, a way to do a newsletter and things like that. But for me personally, that's my thought process, is just to be able to rally you guys, because we're not always going to go on Facebook and go, what's going on today? Like, sometimes that just isn't happening. And then we did have a consultation with a gentleman this week, and I thought it was he just reminded us that where our fight is for Sierra LaVerne is going to be with our city council, making sure that we vote in ones that are solid on not rezoning, and that we keep it in public comment during city council meetings. So every city council meeting, that there's two a month, we need somebody to come and just read a statement on asking the city council not to rezone the land and to continue working on that. So that's what I need. I'm asking all of you 2 volunteers a month, 1 for each meeting, at least to come. And it can't be me, I wish it could be, but it can't be me and it can't be the same people. We need all our residents to just come. I know a lot of people aren't public speakers, I'm not a public speaker, but we will help you write a little something down, read it, and just to keep it on record, public comment at our city council meetings that we don't want this land rezoned. And so please think about that for the next meeting, which one you want to volunteer. We have enough people that you'll only have to do it every few years if we did it that way. So, yeah, I think that's,
Rob,
yeah.
Has Christine Lazar talked to you at all?
No, the last time I reached out to Mike Conrad from Chino Hills, he said she was still working on it.
Okay.
I suspect that if she's been trying to reach him, that could be why he pulled it on the fence or things like that. The orange fence, they've been ordered to remove it. So they're, I think, going back and forth on that, but I'd like to see the city council or the city planning, or to get some teeth on that, because it served no purpose, so that was obviously put up with no purpose, and he's not going to keep anybody out. So, I also think that, oh gosh, I lost my train of thought. So that was the deal, sorry. I'm not a public speaker, I'm just a little stay-at-home mom that got a job at an So Rick did get requested through the Public Information Act, or whatever it's called, sorry, I don't know the technical term, for some of the conversations going back and forth, and I think we only got through July 1, but Rhonda and I are sitting down, and whomever would like to, we're starting to look through that, and I think it's interesting and sad, and for lack of, anything really getting handled or done, early on, so we're doing that right now and seeing what little tidbits we can get out of that, and just to prepare. There is little things, in the background, every different people. I know Kathy Windsor is talking to the LaVerne Land Conservatory, and I know I did run into the mayor and I asked him, and he said they won't give him a price. So I think personally, I think he's buying his time until the new city council members in to start his planning process. I mean, that's my personal opinion, but who knows, right? So, thank you.
We went off Facebook really bad, and Rich Eddy's going to tell us how we're going to do that.
I'll be super brief.
Okay.
I'll actually be brief. If I can use the microphone, I'll do it. So the website is up and running. The names and email addresses and everything that I got from somebody are all entered now. I have a single list, so we can do the text blast or an email blast anytime we want to. I think we need to sit down and figure out what the strategy is going to be moving forward. What I need for the website stuff is to sit down with the point people on each of the issues and get a sense of what they are, and I would like to put together enough information so that people who aren't aware of these things that are going on, I think I mentioned last month, I know people in LaVerne that didn't know the golf course had closed. So the idea being that we can use this to get information out there, it would be a good thing. What I'd like to do is get a sort of comprehensive set of information for each of the big issues that we're facing from the point people. Sit down and write up a bit of a 3 or 4 paragraph page that describes what the issue is, how it might impact them, whether it's public safety or property values or anything else, and what kinds of things they should be thinking about and what kinds of things that they can do. So that's kind of the next push forward, will be that content piece. But it is up, and if you know anybody that's in LaVerne, send them to it, have them fill out the little form. It's literally just first name, last name, and email address at this point. The more names we have, the better, because once we do start to sort of spread the word for what's on the website, the better it will be. If we can reach more, we can reach more people, all the better. But that's basically it. It's up and running now. It's still spotty. I haven't worked on it as much as I hoped I'd be able to over the last month, but it is up, and if we can get some contribution from various people, it'd be great.
I'm sorry, what's the name of it?
It's LV3C, LV3C.com. Yeah. That's what I got.
Thank you.
We're just going to help us fire Zuckerberg. Anyway, Susie, you got anything? Okay. Susie's posted quite a few things on 5G in the group, and you, interesting reading, so take a look at that. And anyway, thank you very much for coming. We've got donations in the back and so forth. One other thing?
Can I say something?
Sure.
Yeah, when we started with the firefighter update, Front 5 had said there had been no firefighter badge pending. And I thought, that's not right, because I'm sure I've attended almost all meetings. So I texted Mayor Kendrick, and he said he did 8 firefighter badge pendings on June 3rd. Greenway, Montoya, Thompson, Wilton, Moore, Miranda, Bancroft, and Walker. So I'm sorry if you guys missed that meeting. I was there, but it
So was I.
It was.
And I'll tell you what, it was good. I think it was not on Patriots Day that he had a problem with. But, I don't know.
I mean, I guess.
He's not here.
I mean,
He went back to work.
You can only badge once.
Okay.
You know.
Anyway, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.